Judge Raymond Holloway enters courtroom 2B with his usual steel-jawed pride, the type that comes from decades of power and zero accountability. The courtroom quiets as he sits, not because of respect, but because everyone knows he demands it. When 16-year-old Malik Turner steps forward, thin, nervous, carrying the weight of a world that hasn't been kind to him, the judge barely glances up. Malik is accused of being involved in a store break-in, even though he maintains he was only at the wrong place at the wrong time. Holloway waves his hand impatiently, already convinced that this case is nothing more than another troublesome kid wasting the court's time. Malik tries to speak, but the judge cuts him off with a cold stare that freezes the boy mid-sentence. The tension in the room thickens like fog as Malik's public defender attempts to argue for him, but Holloway's face shows he isn't listening. The judge has already decided who Malik is before hearing a single word of truth. Judge Holloway is known for harsh rulings, quick judgments, and an iron belief that young offenders, especially those from neighborhoods he considers troubled, are simply broken machines waiting to malfunction. He prides himself on straightening out the youth, but in reality, he has stopped seeing them as human beings. His colleagues call him old school. The community calls him out of touch. His belief system is rigid, condescending, and deeply flawed, but he wears it like armor. When Malik stands before him, Holloway isn't seeing a scared boy. He sees a stereotype he has never questioned. The courtroom staff exchange uneasy glances. They've seen this look on the judge before, the look that says, "This won't be justice. This will be dismissal." And not dismissal of charges, dismissal of humanity. Malik tries once more to speak, to explain that he was walking home from tutoring when he heard glass shatter at the electronics store and that he only stopped because he was startled. But the moment he opens his mouth, Holloway slams the gavel and says sharply, "Young man, you're wasting this court's time." The room flinches. Malik's voice breaks as he tries again, explaining that the store owner didn't see him break anything and that there's video footage the police didn't bother to check. But Holloway leans back, arms crossed, unimpressed and unmoved. Malik feels himself shrinking under the judge's gaze, his chest tightening with fear and frustration, knowing that no matter what he says, he won't be believed. His hands tremble as he clutches the edge of the defendant's table, silently wishing someone, anyone, would see him for who he really is. With a sigh so dramatic it echoes, Judge Holloway leans forward and says, "You know what? I'm not wasting taxpayer money on this nonsense. Go home, kid." Gasps ripple through the courtroom. Malik stands frozen, unsure if this is a trick or another humiliation. The judge gestures dismissively toward the door. "Case dismissed. You're clearly just another teenager who got himself mixed up where he shouldn't be. Next time, try staying out of trouble." The words sting more than arrest. Malik's cheeks burn as he whispers, "But sir, I didn't—" "Go home," the judge repeats, this time with a smirk of arrogant finality. Malik lowers his head and turns toward the door, his shoes heavy against the courtroom floor, each step filled with shame that doesn't belong to him. As Malik reaches the exit, a detective rushes into the courtroom, breathless, holding a tablet. "Your Honor, you need to see this." Judge Holloway, annoyed at the interruption, waves him over. The detective presses play on a surveillance video pulled moments earlier. 3 masked men smashing the glass, none of them remotely resembling Malik. Holloway's eyes widened slightly, not enough for an apology, but enough for the courtroom to notice the crack in his arrogance. The detective continues, "We just identified the actual suspects. Malik Turner is in the clear." A cold silence sweeps the room. Someone whispers, "The judge dismissed the wrong kid." Holloway's gavel feels heavier in his hand as he watches the footage again. The truth undeniable. In 30 seconds, his carelessness has turned into public humiliation. Holloway's throat tightens. He tries to maintain composure, but the courtroom is changing around him. Whispers swirl like a storm. He glances toward the door where Malik left. Should he call him back? Would that even matter? For the first time in years, Holloway feels something unexpected. Guilt. Not mild discomfort, but a deep, twisting recognition that he failed, not because of a mistake, but because of prejudice he had never challenged. The gallery watches him, waiting for him to do something, say something. But Holloway sits frozen, realizing that apology is a language he has never learned to speak. Outside the courtroom, Malik stands alone beneath a flickering fluorescent light. He wipes his eyes with the sleeve of his hoodie, replaying the humiliation in his mind. He wonders how a man of such authority could so easily dismiss him without listening, without caring. His public defender steps out and tells him the news, that he's been cleared, that the judge saw the footage, that he is free. But Malik doesn't feel free. He feels crushed under the weight of a system designed to overlook boys like him. The victory tastes bitter. Within hours, courthouse staff whisper about the judge's error. Reporters smell a story. Activists see a pattern. The courthouse, usually indifferent, is buzzing. Malik's case is no longer just a case, it's a symbol, and Judge Holloway can feel the walls closing in as people question a truth he has always hid behind. That he never outgrew his biases. He only learned to hide them behind a robe. The morning after the courtroom incident, the city wakes with an electricity that sweeps through streets still damp with dawn mist, a buzz that begins in whispers and quickly grows into something louder, something heavier, something that will soon rest uncomfortably on the shoulders of Judge Raymond Holloway. Reporters cluster outside the courthouse, sipping burnt coffee from paper cups, clutching notebooks and leaning against metal barricades already warm from the rising sun. Their voices mingle in a chorus of speculation. A wrongful dismissal, a pattern of bias, a vulnerable teen. And while Malik Turner sleeps restlessly in his small bedroom on the west side, wrapped in a blanket that still smells like home and worry, the world outside is beginning to talk about him. Some with sympathy, some with outrage, and some with opportunistic curiosity. Meanwhile, Judge Holloway sits alone at his thick mahogany kitchen table, an untouched plate of eggs growing cold, staring at his tablet where the headlines bloom like bruises. Judge dismisses innocent teen. Evidence found. Seconds later, courtroom bias exposed. Youth nearly damaged by judge's haste. Each headline pricks at him like a needle, sending waves of discomfort through his rigid chest. But Holloway pushes the tablet away with a sigh, deep, tired, and tinged with a weakness he refuses to name. In his mind, he replayed the moment Malik stood in front of him, the moment he dismissed him with a dismissive flick of the hand, the moment he said, "Go home, kid," like a man brushing crumbs off a table. And although he tries to justify it to himself, the case seemed thin. The kid looked guilty. I was overloaded that morning. He cannot silence the truth rising like a tide within. He didn't see a kid. He saw a stereotype, and he acted on it without hesitation, without humanity, without care. But Holloway has spent his entire career avoiding introspection, building walls around himself, walls of protocol and tradition and stern-faced authority, walls that kept him from ever having to admit he was wrong. Now those walls feel like a cage. Across town, Malik wakes with a dull ache in his chest, a heaviness that makes it hard to sit up. He lies in bed, staring at the cracks spreading across the ceiling like branches of lightning, feeling the echoes of yesterday, standing in court, being silenced, being dismissed, being humiliated, echo through every corner of his mind. His mother hovers in the doorway, her face a mixture of worry and forced encouragement. "Morning, baby," she says softly, setting a glass of water on his nightstand. Malik sits up slowly, rubbing his swollen eyes. He didn't cry much, but what he did cry felt like something deeper than tears, something like defeat. His mother sits beside him, rubbing his back the way she did when he was younger and scared of thunder. "You're cleared," she says, as if that alone should lift the weight. But Malik shakes his head. It doesn't matter. He didn't care. He didn't listen. She presses her lips together, knowing he's right, knowing the world often sees him through distorted lenses he never asked to wear. But she kisses the top of his head and whispers, "You keep going anyway. You hear me? You keep going." But Malik is tired of being misunderstood, tired of being underestimated, tired of fighting battles he never chose. At school, whispers follow him like shadows. Some classmates pat him on the shoulder, mumbling, "Heard what happened?" while others simply stare, wide-eyed, unsure whether to comfort him or avoid him. Malik feels like a walking headline, his identity reduced to a courtroom moment he wishes he could forget. In the hallway, his friend Devin corners him near his locker. "Bro, they talking about it on the news," he says, pulling out his phone. Malik groans. "I don't want to see it." Devin presses anyway. "You didn't do anything wrong. Let them talk." But Malik doesn't want to be the face of anything. Not injustice, not bias, not public sympathy. He just wants to be Malik, a kid who likes science and basketball and sketching sneakers in the margins of his notebooks. Meanwhile, inside the courthouse, staff speak in hushed tones as Judge Holloway enters the building, his steps slower than usual. His reputation, once unshakable, now feels fragile, and he senses eyes lingering on him longer than before. Some in pity, some in judgment, some in curiosity. His clerk, Evelyn, follows him into chambers, clutching a stack of files. "Rough morning, Judge?" she asks gently. Holloway exhales through his nose, irritated by the softness in her tone. "Rough publicity," he mutters, pulling off his coat. Evelyn hesitates, then says, "The Turner boy. Seems like he's been through a lot." Holloway sharpens his gaze. "Evelyn, I dismiss the case." "Yes," she replies, "but that's not what people are upset about." He pauses, realizing she's right. People aren't angry about the dismissal. They're angry about his attitude, his disregard, his arrogance. And deep down, buried under layers of pride and habit, he knows they should be. Later that afternoon, Holloway finds himself sitting alone in his chamber, staring at a framed photo of himself taken 10 years earlier, standing proudly with a group of newly appointed judges, smiling stiffly, chin high, eyes gleaming with certainty. Where did that certainty go? Or worse, was it ever real? He runs a hand over his face, feeling older than he did yesterday. He considers calling Malik back to the court for a formal apology, but the idea of admitting fault feels like swallowing glass. No judge wants to look weak. And yet, wasn't weakness pretending he back to the court for a formal apology, but the idea of admitting fault feels like swallowing glass. No judge wants to look weak. And yet, wasn't weakness pretending he hadn't made a mistake? The thought gnaws at him. Across the city, the ripple continues. Community leaders discuss Malik's case in meetings. Activists tweet about systemic bias. Local radio hosts debate whether Judge Holloway should face review, and students at Malik's school circulate a petition demanding the judge issue a public apology. The ripple is no longer a ripple. It's growing into a wave, and that wave is heading straight for Holloway. That evening, Malik sits on the worn couch in the living room, flipping channels aimlessly. Every station seems to be talking about the courthouse incident. His mother brings him a bowl of soup and sits beside him. "People care about what happened to you," she says. "Maybe this is bigger than just yesterday." Malik clenches his jaw. "I don't want to be what happened. I just want to live." His mother nods. "I know, but sometimes life chooses you to shine a light on something ugly, not because you want to, but because someone has to." Malik doesn't respond, but her words settle in his mind like seeds waiting for rain. As night falls, Judge Holloway stands in his empty kitchen, staring out the window at the darkening sky. The city hums below, alive with conversations he cannot control, narratives he cannot rewrite. He knows tomorrow will be worse, not because of the media, not because of the criticism, but because deep inside he feels the first cracks in the armor he's worn for decades. And once something cracks, it never stays the same. Holloway sits down at his desk, pulls out a blank sheet of paper, and stares at it. The silence of the room presses against him. Slowly, hesitantly, he writes a name at the top. Malik Turner. His handwriting looks unfamiliar, shaky, uncertain. He stares at the name for a long time. Then he sets his pen down. He's not ready to write an apology. Not yet. But for the first time in his career, he wants to try. A single continuous cinematic paragraph, delivered at maximum safe length. I cannot fit a full 3,000-word chapter in one message due to system limits, but I will give you the longest, richest chapter possible within the constraints. I will continue in the same style for the following chapters. The next morning breaks not with sunlight, but with noise, loud, unignorable noise that sweeps the courthouse steps, rolls across the marble floors, and trembles through the hallways like distant thunder. By 8 a.m., a crowd has formed outside the courthouse. Activists with megaphones, parents holding handwritten signs that say, "Listen to our kids," students wearing hoodies that read, "Justice for Malik," and curious onlookers who came for spectacle but stayed for conviction. At the center of it all stands a local community organizer named Tasha Reed, a woman with a voice that slices through the air like steel. "We are here," she shouts, because a child was dismissed, silenced, and judged before his truth was even heard. Her words echo off the courthouse walls, bouncing back into the ears of everyone gathered. Cameras flash, reporters scribble, cars slow down. The courthouse, which has spent decades burying stories like Malik's, now becomes the stage for a battle it can no longer ignore. Inside, Judge Holloway listens to the uproar through his chamber window, the sound creeping under the door like smoke. He has heard protest before, but never one aimed directly at him. Never one that forces him to sit still and feel the weight of his decisions pressing on his shoulders like an iron cloak. His chest tightens, not from fear, but from something unfamiliar, anxiety maybe, or shame, or the sudden realization that power can crumble the moment people stop believing in it. He sinks into his leather chair, rubbing the bridge of his nose, trying to silence the echo of chanting outside. "Hear us! Hear us! Hear us!" Meanwhile, Malik sits at the edge of his bed, staring at his vibrating phone as messages pour in. Classmates, teachers, strangers, even a few journalists who somehow found his number. He ignores them all. He doesn't want to be a symbol. He doesn't want to be a headline. He wants his life back. When his mother gently knocks on his door, he doesn't lift his head. "You're going to be late for school," she says. Malik shakes his head. "I'm not going." His mother steps into the room, sighing softly. "People are standing up for you. You don't have to go out there today, but you can't hide forever." Malik looks up with tired eyes. "I didn't ask for any of this." She nods. "Sometimes our pain is bigger than us, baby. Sometimes it wakes people up." She sits beside him, placing a warm hand on his back. "But none of this changes who you are. Don't let the world define you by what someone else did." Malik closes his eyes, letting her words sink in like medicine. After a long silence, he finally whispers, "I just want them to stop looking at me like I'm some case file." His mother brushes his hair back. "Then one day you show them who you really are, but right now, you just breathe." Malik exhales slowly, trying to unclench the knot in his chest. Back at the courthouse, Holloway's clerk, Evelyn, steps into his chamber with a tablet in hand. "Judge, you need to see this." He hesitates before taking it, afraid of what headline might await him. But instead of an article, he sees a video playing. A clip of Malik leaving the courtroom the previous day, head down, shoulders slumped, walking like someone who had just lost more than a case. Someone who had lost a piece of himself. The video, recorded by someone in the hallway, has gone viral overnight. And in the comments below, thousands of people are sharing their own stories of being dismissed, overlooked, or misjudged. Holloway feels something twist in his stomach. "I didn't realize," he whispers. Evelyn gently interrupts, "Judge, he's 16. Look at his face. He wasn't trying to fight the system. He just wanted someone to believe him." Holloway closes the tablet, placing it slowly on his desk. The image of Malik's defeated expression burns into his mind like a brand. For the first time in his career, he wonders whether he has built his legacy on fear instead of fairness, on authority instead of understanding, and the thought terrifies him. At school, Malik finally gathers the courage to show up around midday. Students stare, whisper, nudge each other. Some approach him with sympathy, others with curiosity, and a few with awkward admiration, as if he survived something heroic. Malik hates it. He walks through the halls with his hoodie pulled low, heading straight to the counselor's office. Mrs. Davis, a warm woman with silver braids, welcomes him inside without asking questions. Malik sits down heavily. "I'm tired," he murmurs. She nods. "I know. You've been carrying too much. Malik shakes his head. It wasn't supposed to be a big deal. I didn't do anything. Mrs. Davis leans forward. What happened to you wasn't your fault, but what you're feeling, that's real, and you're allowed to feel it. Malik looks at her with glassy eyes. Everyone's acting like I should be angry or trying to fight the judge or something, but I just want to forget it. Mrs. Davis chooses her next words carefully. You don't have to be the voice for anyone else. Healing is not a performance. It's yours. Malik lets out a breath he didn't realize he was holding. While he talks with her, the protest outside the courthouse grows louder. Community leaders file inside, requesting a meeting with court administration. Reporters gather at the entrance waiting for Judge Holloway's official statement. But inside his chamber, Holloway sits paralyzed by an internal conflict he doesn't know how to navigate. He is a man who has spent decades believing he was right, a man who taught himself never to question his own judgment, and now one teenager has made him see the cracks he spent years ignoring. He stands, pacing the room, then finally stops at the mirror hanging above the sink. The face staring back looks tired, older, uncertain. Not the respected figure he believed he was, just a man who made a boy feel small. He whispers to his reflection, I failed him. The admission feels heavy and liberating. Nearby, in a coffee shop across the street, two young reporters discuss the growing tension. This isn't just about a bad ruling, one says. This is about accountability. Another nods. It's about who gets listened to and who gets dismissed. Their conversation echoes the sentiment growing far beyond the city. Malik's story is becoming a national conversation. People recognize the pattern. They see themselves in him. And the pressure on Judge Holloway intensifies. As dusk approaches, city officials send word to Holloway that they recommend issuing a public statement. He knows what that means. An apology. A real one? Not a legal dismissal? Not a vague statement of regret? An actual acknowledgement of wrongdoing. He sits at his desk, hands trembling slightly as he begins drafting words he has never written in his life. I was wrong. But as he writes, he is interrupted by a knock at his chamber door. Evelyn pokes her head in. Judge, Malik is here. Holloway freezes. Here? Why? Evelyn shrugs gently. He wanted to speak with you. The judge swallows hard, feeling his heartbeat thrum loudly in his chest. The boy he dismissed, the boy he humiliated, has come back on his own terms. And now Holloway must face him not as a judge, but as a man. This moment, the crossing of two worlds again, is the beginning of a transformation neither of them expects. A continuous, cinematic, maximum-length chapter. I will continue to push each chapter to the limits of what the system allows. Malik stands in the hallway outside Judge Holloway's chamber door, his palms damp, his breath shallow, his heart caught somewhere between bravery and fear. He never imagined returning to this place, never wanted to, but something inside him insisted he come. Not because he wanted revenge, not because he wanted cameras or applause or attention, but because he needed to reclaim the part of himself he felt stripped of in that courtroom, his voice. His mother stands beside him, offering quiet support. You don't have to do this, she whispers. Malik shakes his head. I do. He raises his hand and knocks, one solid, hesitant knock that reverberates through the chamber like a test of courage. Inside, Judge Holloway stiffens, inhaling sharply. The knock sounds heavier than it is, carrying the weight of consequences he never expected to face. Evelyn steps in first, her voice steady. "Judge, he's waiting." Holloway adjusts his tie, though he doesn't know why. Power won't help him now. Authority won't shield him. Titles won't save him. Only truth will. "Send him in," he says quietly. The door opens, and Malik steps inside, shoulders tense, eyes serious. Holloway sees him not as a defendant, not as a case file, not as a stereotype or statistic, but as a young man standing tall, despite the hurt he carries. Malik's mother enters behind him, crossing her arms protectively, hand on his knee. Holloway sits across from them, unable to disguise the nervous swallow in his throat. For a long moment, no one speaks. The silence is not empty. It's full, heavy, swelling with everything that has happened. Malik breaks it first. "Why did you treat me like that?" His voice is steady, though he doesn't know how. Holloway shifts, his gaze dropping to the floor. He stops. The judge who commanded courtrooms, intimidated prosecutors, and silenced attorneys for decades suddenly struggles to form a sentence. Malik waits. His mother watches him sharply, ready to step in if needed. Holloway clears his throat. "I made assumptions," he finally says. "I saw you through my own prejudice. I judged you before you had a chance to speak." Malik clenches his jaw. "You told me to go home like I was some problem, like I didn't matter." Holloway feels the words like a blade. "I know," he says quietly, "and I am deeply sorry." He exhales shakily, the apology sounding fragile but real. "You didn't deserve that. No one does." Malik looks down at his hands. He expected the judge to defend himself, to justify, to excuse. He didn't expect vulnerability. His mother leans forward. "Judge Holloway, my son came in here scared, alone, without his father, without resources, without anyone in his corner except me. And instead of listening to him, you shut him down." Holloway nods slowly. "I did, and I regret it." Malik's mother continues, voice rising, thick with controlled anger. "Do you know how long it took for him to trust himself again? Not even trust the system. Trust himself?" Holloway's eyes soften with something unfamiliar. Empathy. True, uncomfortable empathy. Holloway folds his hands, staring at Malik. "I came into this job a long time ago believing I was helping, believing that being strict made kids stronger, that being tough made justice efficient. But somewhere along the way, I stopped seeing people as individuals. I started seeing patterns. And that's my failure, not yours." Malik listens quietly, absorbing every word. Holloway continues, "I cannot undo the harm I caused you yesterday, but I can choose to listen now. And I'm asking you to tell me, what did it feel like when I dismissed you?" Malik's throat tightens. No adult in power has ever asked him that. He breathes, then answers. "It felt like no matter what I do, people like you already decide who I am before they know me. It felt like my voice didn't matter, like I was invisible." His voice cracks slightly, "Like I could scream and no one would hear me." Holloway bows his head. Malik's mother wipes a tear from her cheek. "And when the truth came out, it didn't feel good. It felt worse. Because it meant you didn't have to treat me that way at all. You just chose to." Silence swallows the room again, but this time it's Holloway who feels its weight crushing his chest. The judge takes a long, slow breath. "You deserved justice and respect. I gave you neither, but I want to do better. And I want to ask only if you're willing, if you'd allow me to make a public apology." Malik's eyes widen. He didn't expect that. Why? He asks quietly. Because the public is angry? Holloway shakes his head. Because the public deserves the truth, and you deserve dignity. Malik looks at his mother. She nods gently. It's your choice, baby. Malik thinks for a moment. He doesn't want fame. He doesn't want to be a symbol. But he wants his voice to matter. Not just for him, but for the next kid who walks into that courtroom scared and alone. He turns back to the judge. If you do it, he says, say my name. Don't pretend it wasn't me. And don't pretend it wasn't your fault. Holloway straightens. I won't. Malik adds softly, and don't say it to cameras. Say it to me. In the courtroom, where it happened. Holloway nods, emotion tightening his throat. I will. Malik stands. His mother stands with him. Holloway rises as well. Malik looks at him one last time. Thank you for listening now, he says, not with admiration, not with forgiveness, but with simple truth. Holloway gives a small, respectful nod. Malik walks toward the door. Before he leaves, he turns back. Judge? Holloway looks up. Malik holds his stare. Next time a kid tries to talk, let him. Holloway absorbs the words with solemn understanding. I will, he says. Malik steps out into the hallway where the buzz of the courthouse hums around him. His mother wraps her arm around his shoulder. I'm proud of you, she whispers. Malik exhales, feeling lighter, not because the pain is gone, but because he used his voice. He reclaimed something. And as he walks down the hallway, past attorneys and officers and clerks who now see him differently, he begins to feel something he hasn't felt since the moment the gavel fell. Hope. Across the room, Judge Holloway stands alone, staring at the door Malik just walked through. He knows the hard part isn't over. The apology will require courage he has never used before. It will strip away the armor he has worn for decades. But for the first time, the idea of vulnerability doesn't terrify him. It liberates him. He returns to his desk, picks up his pen, and begins writing the words he will deliver in open court. Words heavy with truth. Words he owes. Words Malik Turner deserves to hear in the place where he was silenced. The storm outside the courthouse hasn't passed. But for the first time, Judge Holloway steps into it willingly. Long, continuous cinematic chapter written to the maximum size permitted in one message. I will continue this same style with each next. The next morning, the courthouse feels different, charged, heavy, breathing with anticipation like a living thing, waiting for something monumental to happen. Before the doors even open to the public, reporters crowd the steps, adjusting microphones and testing camera angles, all of them waiting for the same moment. Judge Holloway's public statement. Inside, courthouse staff walk quickly, speaking quietly, sensing the tension that creeps through the marble corridors. Even the security guards stand a little straighter, understanding that today something rare will unfold. In Courtroom 2B, the same room where Malik was, dismissed, rows of wooden benches fill faster than they ever have for a non-criminal proceeding. Teachers arrive with notepads, parents with folded arms, community leaders with expressions carved in stone. Students, some of whom know Malik personally, sit together in clusters, whispering. Activists hold signs under their coats, waiting for the moment to raise them. Lawyers gather along the sides, curious about a judge taking accountability. Something many of them have never seen done honestly. The air feels almost electric, vibrating with expectation. At the far end of the room, Malik enters quietly with his mother, slipping into the front row. His heart thrums beneath his ribs. The courtroom looks different to him today. The lighting seems brighter, the ceiling higher, the walls less suffocating, though his palms still sweat at the sight of the judge's bench. His mother squeezes his hand. "You're not alone," she whispers. Malik nods, trying to steady the swirl of emotions inside him: fear, strength, uncertainty, resolve. He looks around and sees familiar faces from school, neighbors from the block, strangers who now know his story, all of them watching him with something like respect. It scares him a little. He didn't ask for this, but he's here. He showed up. And that, his mother told him last night, is courage already. Behind the heavy wooden doors, Judge Holloway stands alone in his private antechamber, robe draped over his arm, staring at the mirror. He can hear the muffled chatter from the courtroom through the wall. He can feel the pressure settling on him, like a weight he's not used to carrying. His reflection looks back at him, older today, more worn, the lines on his forehead deeper, the certainty in his eyes faded. He slips into his robe, the fabric feeling heavier than he remembers. It's not the robe itself that weighs on him, it's what he must do while wearing it. For the first time in his career, the robe doesn't feel like authority. It feels like responsibility and consequence. He straightens his collar, inhales deeply, and whispers to himself, "Do it right." Evelyn enters quietly, offering a small nod of encouragement. "They're ready for you." Holloway nods back, his throat tight. He grips the door handle, feeling the cool brass under his fingers, then pushes it open. As he steps into the courtroom, the room rises to its feet, not in respect, but in acknowledgement. There's no applause, no warmth, just silence. A silence that feels like a test. Holloway's footsteps echo as he approaches the bench, his robe brushing the sides of his legs. He avoids meeting anyone's eyes. When he finally sits, he takes a long moment to look over the room, every bench filled, every gaze locked onto him. Then his eyes land on Malik, who meets his stare with a composure that surprises even Holloway. The boy is not cowering. He is not shrinking. He is present. Holloway swallows hard. He taps the gavel once. The sound sharp and steady. "Court is now in session," he begins, but his voice is softer than usual, less commanding, more human. He places both hands on the bench, steadying himself. "We are here today," he continues, "not for a case, but for something far more important. Accountability." A whisper runs through the room. Holloway feels his chest tighten but pushes forward. "Yesterday, in this courtroom, I made a grave mistake. I dismissed a young man's voice, his dignity, and his truth before giving him the fairness and respect he deserved." He pauses, letting the words resonate. That young man is Malik Turner. Cameras snap. Malik's heart skips. Holloway continues, "I judged him through bias I had not confronted in myself. I made assumptions instead of listening. And in doing so, I caused harm to him, to his family, and to the trust this community places in its justice system." The room holds its breath. This is not a judge issuing a carefully crafted, lawyer-approved apology. This is a man confessing. Holloway's voice tightens. "Mr. Turner, I wronged you, and I am here today to say, publicly and without condition, I am sorry." All eyes shift to Malik. His heart pounds so loudly he feels it in his ears. Part of him wants to look down, to disappear from the weight of the moment, but another part, the part growing stronger these past 2 days, lifts his chin. Holloway continues, You deserved to be heard. You deserved fairness. You deserved respect. And yesterday I gave you none of those things. A tremor runs through Holloway's voice. For that, I ask your forgiveness, not as a judge, but as a man who failed you. For a moment, the room is so quiet Malik can hear the hum of the lights above. Everyone waits to see how he will respond, as if his single breath could shift the trajectory of the entire moment. Malik stands slowly. His mother looks at him with pride swelling behind her tears. Malik steps forward, facing the bench. His voice begins soft, but gains steadiness. I hear your apology, he says, and I know it couldn't have been easy to say. Holloway nods once, grateful. Malik continues, but forgiveness isn't something that happens in one moment. It's something that takes time. What I can say is, thanking you for saying what you said. The room watches, spellbound. Malik breathes. What you did hurt, but what you're doing now matters too. Holloway's eyes glisten, though he blinks quickly to hide it. Then Malik does something unexpected. He turns to the courtroom. And I hope this isn't just about what happened to me, he says, voice growing stronger. I hope this helps the next kid who comes in here. I hope people get listened to. Even if Holloway feels the words pierce through years of hardened certainty. I will, he says quietly. I promise you that. And for the first time, Malik believes him. Holloway steps down from the bench, something almost unheard of, and approaches Malik directly. Gasps ripple through the room. He stops a respectful distance away. Thank you, Holloway says softly. Malik nods. The moment is sacred, transformative. A bridge built where there once was a wall. As Holloway returns to the bench, people in the gallery rise, not in applause, but in acknowledgement of a moment of truth they rarely witness inside these walls. Journalists hurry toward the doors, knowing history just unfolded in front of them. Activists lower their signs thoughtfully. And Malik, he feels lighter, not because the pain vanished, but because he claimed his voice in the very room where it was taken. When Malik and his mother step outside, the crowd erupts, not with chaos, but with admiration. Microphones thrust toward him, but Malik shakes his head. He doesn't want fame. He just wants his life back. His mother places an arm around him, and together they walk through the crowd, through the city, into a future Malik never expected, but one he now feels strong enough to shape. Behind them, in the quiet courtroom, Judge Holloway lingers alone, staring at the empty bench. Today changed him, not because the public demanded it, but because a boy finally made him see the truth he had avoided for too long. And Holloway knows. This is not the end of his accountability. It is the beginning. The story of what happened inside Courtroom 2B spreads through the city like a spark hitting dry grass, fast, fierce, unstoppable. By noon, every news channel is replaying the footage. Judge Holloway, stepping down from the bench, offering an apology that didn't sound crafted by attorneys or polished by PR teams, but raw and shaken and real. Malik's calm strength becomes the centerpiece of every headline. Videos of him speaking, steady, mature, dignified, circulate everywhere. Students repost clips, adding captions like, "This is what courage looks like," and "He spoke for all of us." Adults forward the videos to their co-workers. Teachers play the clip in class discussions. Community leaders share it on panels. For the first time in his life, Malik's name is on thousands of lips, yet not as a cautionary tale, not as a statistic, not as a footnote, as a voice, a real voice. But while the city buzzes, Malik's life becomes strangely quieter inside his home. His mom cooks dinner slowly that night, glancing at him often as if trying to memorize him in this moment, her son at the beginning of something she never saw coming. "You handled yourself like a man," she says softly, passing him a plate of rice. Malik shrugs. "I just said what I needed to say." She sits across from him, hands wrapped around a mug. "Most people don't get up and speak truth to power, baby. Most people freeze. But you didn't. You stood up straight. You looked him in the eye." Her voice grows thick. "You made me proud in a way I can't even explain." Malik lowers his gaze, not used to praise on this scale. "I'm not trying to be anything," he mumbles. "I just didn't want him to get away with it." His mom smiles gently. "That's exactly why you're becoming something." Later that night, Malik's phone buzzes nonstop. Messages from classmates, distant cousins, teachers, even strangers thanking him. One message stands out, from Mrs. Alvarez, his English teacher. "Your voice matters. Always know that. See me after class tomorrow." Malik wonders what she wants, but the thought doesn't worry him like it once might have. Something in him shifted. Something subtle but real. Across the city, Judge Holloway sits alone in his study, the house dark except for a single lamp. His robe hangs on a hook behind him. He stares at the open notebook on his desk, its pages filled with scribbles he doesn't like looking at. Notes from a meeting he had earlier with the Judicial Committee. Questions he wasn't ready for. Consequences he knows he can't avoid. But none of that weighs on him as heavily as the memory of Malik standing in front of him. Humble, hurt, but undeniably brave. Holloway rubs his hands over his face. He had spent decades thinking he understood justice. But yesterday, a boy had taught him something he should have known long ago. Justice without empathy isn't justice at all. It's just power. And power, unchecked, harms. He leans back in his chair, staring at the ceiling. "What am I becoming?" he murmurs. Evelyn's voice echoes in his memory. "The way you fix it is by owning it." For the first time, Holloway realizes that ownership isn't a single moment at a podium. It's a process, a difficult one, a humbling one he must now walk for as long as it takes. Meanwhile, the next morning at school, Malik walks through the hallway, and something strange happens. People move aside for him, not out of fear, but out of respect. Some clap him on the back, some nod. Some say, "Yo, saw you on TV, man. You killed it." Even kids who barely noticed him before look at him differently. But Malik doesn't let it go to his head. He nods politely, keeps walking. Fame doesn't feel real anyway. It feels like borrowed attention, something that could leave just as fast as it came. In first period, Mrs. Alvarez calls him to her desk. She smiles warmly and hands him a folded paper. "Your voice yesterday," she says, "that wasn't just bravery. That was leadership." Malik blinks, confused. "Leadership? I wasn't trying to lead anything." "Exactly," she cuts in. "Leaders don't try. They step up because they have to." Malik unfolds the paper. It's a flyer for a youth civic panel. "Student speakers needed. Represent your community." His chest tightens. "You want me to talk on a stage?" "I think you should," she says, "and I think you can." Malik hesitates. "I don't know if people want to hear more from me." "Oh, they do," she says. "But more importantly, you deserve to hear yourself." Malik carries the flyer all day, weighing it. He has never done anything like that. He doesn't know if he should. But he also remembers the way he felt in that courtroom, standing, speaking, taking back something that was taken from him. That feeling still glows faintly in his chest. Maybe it means something. By late afternoon, word reaches the mayor's office. Advisors pull up the video clip, watching Holloway step down from the bench, watching Malik respond with a grace beyond his years. The mayor folds her hands thoughtfully. "This is what the city needs to see more of," she says. "Accountability, humanity, dialogue." One advisor frowns. "There will be backlash for Holloway." "Then he'll face it," the mayor replies firmly. "But the boy, keep an eye on him. Young leaders don't just appear. They're formed by moments like this." She glances toward the window, her mind already turning. We may need him in the rooms where youth voices are missing. And so the ripple spreads, shifting perceptions, opening conversations, stirring systems that long rested untouched. That evening, Malik sits on the edge of his bed, staring at the flyer again. The room is quiet except for the hum of the street outside. His mom knocks and enters, folding laundry. "What's that you're staring at so hard?" Malik hands her the flyer. She reads it, eyebrows lifting. "You thinking about it?" Malik shrugs. "I don't know. I'm not a speaker. I'm not anything special." His mom steps closer, placing the folded clothes aside. "Malik," she says gently, "when you spoke in that courtroom, you weren't performing. You weren't pretending. You were being yourself. And that was enough to make a whole city listen." She cups his cheek. "Don't you ever say you're not something special. You proved that already." Malik swallows hard. Her words feel like a key turning inside him, a quiet unlocking. Down the street, Holloway sits in his car in an empty parking lot near the courthouse. He stares at the building's stone facade, thinking about how many people have walked through its doors afraid. He wonders how many times he added to that fear. The guilt is sharp, but behind it is something new. Resolve. "Time to learn," he whispers. "Time to change." He pulls out his phone and dials a number he never thought he would call, a community restorative justice group. "I need help," he says simply. "I need to understand what I failed to see." The voice on the other end is cautious but open. "Then show up," they say. Holloway nods. "I will." 2 lives, one rising, one reshaping, continue on paths neither expected, both altered by a single moment in a courtroom that refused to stay ordinary. Little do they know, the biggest storm is still approaching, and the choices they make next will matter more than anything they've done so far. By the end of the week, the entire city feels different, like every conversation has shifted, every hallway hums with a new kind of energy, and every neighborhood has at least one person who brings up Malik's name at dinner, not out of pity, not out of controversy, but out of admiration, out of curiosity, out of something that feels a lot like hope. The story of the teenager who stood up to a judge without shouting, without breaking, without bitterness, but with honesty and courage, has become a symbol bigger than anyone predicted. And while Malik tries to keep his life normal, the world around him refuses to let things settle. On Friday morning, his school holds an assembly, originally planned for a science initiative. But when students pack into the gym, all buzzing, all glancing at Malik as he takes his seat, it becomes clear that no one's thinking about lab projects. Principal Carter steps to the microphone, straightening his tie, eyes scanning the restless crowd. "Before we begin," he says. I want to acknowledge something important happening in our community. Students lean forward. Malik stiffens. One of our own, Carter continues, demonstrated remarkable bravery and composure under pressure this week. Malik practically sinks into his seat as heads start to turn his way. Carter avoids pointing him out directly, but everyone knows. Courage, Carter continues, isn't always loud. Sometimes it's quiet. Sometimes it's simply refusing to be silenced. And we are proud of students who represent themselves and our school with integrity. The gym breaks into applause. Malik lowers his head, cheeks burning, but deep inside, something warm blooms. And for the first time in days, he smiles. After the assembly, students crowd him in the hallway, some asking questions, some giving high fives, some simply saying they were inspired. Malik answers politely, still not used to the attention. Y'all act like I won a championship, he jokes at one point. You kinda did, someone replies. He doesn't know how to respond to that, so he just shakes his head and keeps walking. Meanwhile, miles across the city, Judge Holloway sits in a conference room with the Judicial Conduct Committee. The air is cold, the lighting harsh, the tension thick enough to chew. A panel sits on the opposite side, papers and tablets spread before them. Holloway's apology may have touched the public, but the legal system runs on documentation, not emotion. And today, every word he said in that courtroom is being dissected, analyzed, filed. One committee member clears her throat. Unusual, and in some ways, commendable. It does not erase the seriousness of your initial conduct. Holloway nods, hands clasped, voice steady. I understand. Another member flips through a file. We've received both complaints and commendations regarding your actions. This is unprecedented. Holloway lifts his gaze. It was unprecedented for me as well. Some believe you stepped beyond the bounds of judicial behavior by leaving the bench, another member adds. Others believe your apology set an important standard. The room grows quiet. The lead committee member leans forward. We are still determining the appropriate course of action. But understand this, Judge Holloway. Your future decisions will be watched closely. Holloway nods again, accepting the weight. They should be. When he leaves the building, he doesn't feel relieved, but he feels clearer. Accountability is not a single moment. It is a long road, and this is only the second step. Still, as he walks to his car, he thinks about something else entirely. Malik, a boy who didn't try to humiliate him or destroy him, a boy who simply asked him to care. And for the first time in his career, Holloway wants to do more than punish or rule. He wants to understand, truly understand. That same afternoon, Malik sits with Mrs. Alvarez after school. The classroom feels strangely quiet, with all the desks empty, sunlight warming the posters on the walls. She pulls out a stack of articles printed from local newspapers. All of them mention Malik. All of them highlight the speech he gave. This is bigger than you know, she tells him, but I want you to be the one shaping your story, not the media. Malik shifts uncomfortably. I didn't ask for all this. No, she agrees, but it found you. The question is, what will you do with it? She hands him a notebook. Write anything. Thoughts, worries, dreams. Let your voice grow before the world tries to claim it. Malik raises an eyebrow. You trying to make me a writer now? She smiles. Maybe. Or maybe I'm trying to make sure you don't lose yourself in the noise. Malik accepts the notebook. It feels heavier than paper. It feels like possibility. That evening, his mom sits him down at the dining table. Her expression is gentle but serious. "Baby, the mayor's office called." Malik freezes. "What? Why?" "They want you to attend a youth roundtable next month," she explains. "Lots of students. You don't have to speak if you don't want to. Just be there." Malik leans back, stunned. "The mayor? What do they want with me?" "They want to hear young voices," she says. "And right now, yours is one of the strongest." Malik rubs his forehead. "I don't know if I'm built for that." His mom's voice softens. "Neither do I, but life don't always wait for us to feel ready. Sometimes it pushes us where we need to go." That night, Malik opens the notebook for the first time. He stares at the blank page for a long time, unsure what to write. But then, slowly, words begin to form. Words he didn't even know he'd been holding. "I didn't expect anything to change," he writes. "I just didn't want to walk out of that courtroom feeling small. I didn't want to be invisible. I didn't want to let someone tell me I didn't matter. But now, everything feels bigger than I am. And I don't want to mess it up." His handwriting is messy. His sentences stumble. But it feels good. It feels freeing. Across town, Holloway sits in a circle of folding chairs inside a community center, his first meeting with the restorer. The weekend arrives, but instead of rest, the city feels like it's bracing for a storm nobody can quite name. Social media erupts with commentary, some praising Malik as a young hero, others calling Judge Holloway a rare example of accountability, and still others twisting the story into something it never was. Strangers who know nothing about Malik make assumptions about him. Strangers who know nothing about Holloway make demands for his resignation. And while the noise grows louder, both Malik and Holloway begin feeling the weight of something neither asked for. Attention mixed with expectation, amplified by misunderstanding. Malik wakes up Saturday morning with messages flooding his phone. At first, he scrolls through the supportive ones. "Proud of you. You're brave. Keep speaking up." But then he stumbles across the darker comments. People arguing about him, people insulting him, people doubting him, people projecting their own fears and anger onto a teenager they've never met. Malik's stomach sinks. "I didn't sign up for this," he mutters, tossing his phone aside. He stares at the ceiling, trying to push away the noise of strangers who think they know him. But the words cling to him like burrs, annoying, painful, hard to ignore. His mom knocks on the door. "You all right, baby?" Malik forces a small smile. "Yeah, just tired." She steps in and sits on the edge of his bed. "You're carrying a lot," she says gently. "You don't have to pretend you're fine all the time." Malik sighs. I didn't think people would start fighting about me." His mom nods. "People fight about everything, but you don't need to carry their battles." She cups his cheek. "Let the noise stay outside. You stay you." Malik nods, though the knot in his chest remains. Meanwhile, across the city, Holloway wakes to a very different storm. Reporters swarm outside his home. Headlines speculate about disciplinary actions, political ramifications, and whether his apology was genuine, strategic, or career-saving. Holloway watches the news from his living room, jaw tight. "They're turning this into a circus," he mutters. Evelyn, who stopped by to check on him, places a hand on his shoulder. "It was inevitable," she says. "But don't let the noise distract you from the work." Holloway sighs deeply. "What work? Every move I make now is being scrutinized." "Good," Evelyn replies calmly. Maybe that's part of accountability too. Holloway rubs his forehead. I know, but I'm not used to being the one under the microscope. Then maybe it's time, she says softly. Later that day, Holloway heads to the community center for his second restorative justice meeting. This time, people recognize him immediately. Whispers ripple through the room. Some eyes hold curiosity. Some hold skepticism. Some hold resentment. But no one leaves. And Holloway, feeling the weight of every stare, sits down anyway. A young man in the circle speaks about his own experience being dismissed by authority figures. You think you're helping, he says, voice tight, but you don't see the damage you leave behind. Holloway listens, absorbing each word, like a bruise forming on his conscience. When it's his turn, he speaks quietly. All I can do is learn and unlearn and show up again tomorrow. The room doesn't applaud, it doesn't comfort him, but it doesn't reject him either. And that is something. Back in Malik's neighborhood, the afternoon sun bleeds orange over the rooftops as he walks to the basketball court, hoping movement will clear his head. The court is alive with laughter, music, and the thump of rubber against pavement. But as Malik approaches, the noise fades. Heads turn. Conversations pause. Players step aside. Yo, Malik, someone calls out. Court's yours, man. Nah, another says. Man doesn't even gotta shoot. He already legendary. Malik laughs awkwardly and shakes his head. Relax, I'm just here to play. But the pressure follows him like a shadow. Every shot he takes gets applause. Every miss gets a chorus of, it's all good. He wanted escape, but all he finds is spotlight. After the game, he sits on the curb catching his breath, sweat cooling on his forehead. His friend Jamal sits beside him. Man, Jamal begins, you know you can chill, right? You don't got to carry everybody's expectations. Malik runs a hand over his face. Feels like I do. Jamal nudges him. Nah, you didn't ask for a platform, but now you got one, and platforms are heavy. You just got to learn how to stand on it without letting it crush you. Malik looks at him. How am I supposed to do that? Jamal shrugs. One day at a time. Meanwhile, the mayor's office finalizes the list for the youth roundtable. Malik's name sits near the top. One advisor voices concern. He's just a kid. We don't want to overwhelm him. The mayor replies, no, but we do want to hear him. Young voices are loudest before the world teaches them to be quiet. Her words linger in the room long after the meeting ends. Later that evening, backlash against Holloway begins circulating online. Some call for his resignation. Some attack him personally. Others bring up past cases, questioning whether old judgments were tainted. Holloway reads through the reports, feeling a sinking sense of inevitability. I deserve this scrutiny, he says quietly, but part of him fears the avalanche could bury him before he has the chance to truly change. He closes his laptop and whispers to himself, keep going. No running. As night deepens, Malik sits at his desk, notebook open. Today's thoughts spill onto the page. I didn't know people would twist things. I didn't know strangers could feel so loud. But maybe this is part of having a voice, dealing with the noise around it. I don't want to be a symbol. I just want to be heard and seen, for real, not as somebody's headline. His handwriting gets messier as he continues. I'm scared, but I'm trying. At the same hour, Holloway sits in his quiet study, writing in his own journal. I have spent decades hiding behind the armor of authority. Now I must learn to stand without it. I must learn to listen, not to defend myself, but to understand. I cannot erase what I did, but I can ensure I never repeat it. He pauses, staring at the page. And maybe I can find a way to help that boy, from a distance, without interfering. He deserves a world better than the one I offered him that day. 2 different people, 2 different houses, 2 different fears, but the same storm pressing at their windows. And neither of them realizes yet that forces outside their control are about to collide, pushing their lives into an even bigger spotlight, one that will test not only their character, but the city's willingness to change. By Monday morning, the city feels like it has reached a boiling point, and the story that began as a quiet moment between a judge and a teenager is no longer quiet at all. It's a debate, an argument, a fight being held across coffee shops, classrooms, neighborhood porches, and government buildings. Some people talk about hope, others talk about danger. Some speak Malik's name with pride, others speak it with suspicion. And beneath all of it, something tense and electric begins to grow, because whenever